There we go. All right, we're live.
Yay!
Yay! It's Pancake Sex Book Club where we're going to talk about Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. That's it.
The audiobook guy said Yaa Gyasi.
Gyasi. See, I already messed it up.
You might be wrong.
You're doing good. Hang in
I
there.
know.
We're teaching the controversy. Okay.
We are. You can pick. Not really. If I had found a pronunciation, I would have used that.
Yeah.
But either way, let's quickly talk about what we thought about the book. Rosie, it was your pick, so you go first.
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts about this book. First, though, for some trivia, today, August 20th, in 1619, is the first known landing of the first African slaves into Virginia. 20 African slaves were brought into Virginia today in 1619, which kind of makes me want to throw up. Book that kind of made me want to throw up.
Awkward.
Yeah. Anyway, it was. I read a review of it. I think it was a New York Times review after I finished reading it, and I was surprised that they were a little unkind. I didn't have the same issues with it that the reviewer did. I really liked it. There were a couple of pieces that felt contrived, like checking the boxes. You know, we're going to have a jazz musician. He's going to be addicted to heroin, and he's going to represent every man. On the other hand, if you're writing a story where you're trying to represent the sort of the everyman culture, that's what you do. So, okay.
All right, Liz, your turn.
Oh, okay. She writes beautifully. Like the way she describes even like kind of mundane areas it's beautiful prose even when it's read out. So I really appreciate that. It got me thinking back to a lot of books that I've read this genre before, but always in Spanish. The twice that I've read it before has always been in Spanish, like with Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Isabel Allende. Like they do the family novel, the family chronicle thing, and they do the even kind of like the magical realism, which really stuck out to me in some parts. And I thought this was a beautiful example of it. There were a few, like some of the character stories were a little more fleshed out and felt, like yes, the full story. I could happily leave this character and jump to the next, and then the next, and the next. But overall, I was just more blown over by just as an author, she writes beautifully.
Amelia?
Yeah, I agree. It immediately brought to mind Gabriel Garcia Marquez, like that kind of, it's very much in that genre, which is not my preferred genre. I typically like more story in my books, but the character, I felt like I really enjoyed the different characterizations, the different people that you got to know. Almost at the end of most chapters, I thought, or most sections, I really did not want to go on to other characters. I would be like, no, wait. Like, there's like so much more, especially as we got to the magical realism stuff, which is that is sort of my jam. So as we got to sort of the crazy lady, which capital letters, that's sort of one of her names in the book. I really just wanted the whole book to be about her. And so some of it was sort of frustrating that it would skip ahead, but it was beautifully written and I really enjoyed it. Conceptually, I thought it was a really well-written story or book. I don't know if I want to call it a story, but a well-written book for sure.
Similar feelings here. The prose was like amazing. I flew through this book, which it's not a long book. It's only like 300 and some pages. So that's not, it's not super long. But each chapter in my Kindle was still 10 plus minutes. It said on like the reading time. So, it's heavy. This is nothing like what I normally read. Shocking, I know. So I was surprised at how much I liked it. So yeah, I was really, really surprised at how much I liked it. And it's kind of now maybe one of my new recommendations for people.
That's awesome.
So
Make 'em cry. Yeah, it was really sad.
Yes.
Like, I don't have a more intellectual
but
way
I
to
think
put
it
that.
was important. It's an important sad to have, an important thing to empathize with. But so we'll go straight into our questions. Do you think that they spent enough time with each character to get a sense of their story, which I think kind of plays into all of us talking about the characters already? You know, it almost felt too brief with a lot of them, and then too long with others, which is interesting.
Yeah. Like, I think my one question for that was, I was like, whoa, we're gonna just like abandon the, like, you know, the young gay man coming back to an African village, and that, like, we're just gonna drop that? Okay.
Right? Or the pregnant woman who got, like, who went to the missionaries because she had to run away from her village because the guy wouldn't marry her. Like, I was so in for that story, and then like ended, and I was no,
but you got payoff later on that story, though.
A little bit, yeah, more than others.
Didn't like the sequel. Did not like the. They left it dangling, like, oh, we're gonna have DLC for this character, and then they just had to, like, drop it in somebody else's thing. Oh shit.
Right.
Well, honestly, I thought that some of the characters were very interesting. I think, like, since it was trying to tell, like, a story over the course of 300 years, I can understand the author just going, like, all right, look, yes, I know we just established this guy has a heroin addiction, and he gets over it, trust me. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Like, we have to, like, you know, blow past the whole, seriously, he just, like, oh, no more heroin addiction. And the baby was born to the addict mother. Like, oh, we're missing a huge chunk of the story, but there's no time for that. There's no time, and I get it. So, but the fact that I would like to know more about these characters, I think says some really good stuff.
Rosie, you got anything?
Not that hasn't already been said. I would like to know every individual story. I mean, I would. This is 5-6 generations. I could read it.
I need the family tree drawn out for me.
Yeah.
I had moments. I was like, wait, who's shit?
Yeah, I kept tracing back to the first two. Like, okay, which line does this come from? You know,
like, especially once we crossed and we were all in America. I was like, crap, this is harder to keep track of.
The audiobook was good for that because he used an American accent for when you were on Essie's side and a Ghanaian accent for Afia's side.
Yeah.
Did you?
That's awesome.
I think you and I are the only ones who listened to the book. Did you love that guy who was reading?
He was great. He you know, he did the prose a lot of, like, justice. Like, it still sounded beautiful when it was read out loud. And he was able to flip accent, so I knew who everyone was when they were talking. Like,
the first time he flipped accents, I had to go look and see if it was the same reader.
Yeah, I thought this might have been one of those castings, but no.
He was really good.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to pull up his name in a moment. Homegoing, a novel. Dominic Hoffman. Dominic Hoffman is the reader for this particular audiobook.
Nice.
He was very good.
Did you guys have a favorite character at all? This isn't on the sheet, but
Crazy Lady. Crazy Lady was my favorite.
Crazy Lady was, like, of our POV characters, I really liked oh my god,
Marjorie?
Marjorie, thank you. Marjorie, the lady at the very end. Oh, it's surprised we liked the bookish kind of, you know, smart girl.
Shocking,
really.
I know.
No, I thought she was pretty great.
I also really liked H.
H was also really good.
You know,
that, like, shit got real for H's story.
Right? And it was just, I don't know, I felt really connected to him.
Oh, Joe was really good too. Joe was Essie's son. No, Essie's grandson.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed one.
But yeah, that I agree. Same characters for me stood out a lot. No character was like, oh, I don't like this character.
Yeah,
really. It was just mostly like certain ones stuck out for me more as well.
Yeah.
All right. How did this book surprise you? Like, did you expect the format to be what it was? I didn't know anything going in, really. I'd heard good things. And I was like, okay, cool. This is something I never would probably pick up on my own. So I'm going to read it for book club. And I was just like not expecting the formatting to go like it did, I guess. Did you guys have anything?
It surprised me because typically the word homegoing, what I've learned of it is that in African American cultures it has to do with a funeral. It's the funeral party sort of after the funeral service, right? It's the celebration of life. And I get that this is a celebration of life through many, many generations, but I expected a funeral. I expected it to begin and end with a funeral, to sort of, envelope the story that way, and it didn't. And, it's not bad that it didn't. I just was sort of surprised. It didn't always feel like the name of the novel fit the story, the question you asked.
See, I think you might have known too much. I'm sorry, this is a very tricky stitch I'm doing. I think you might have known, because I didn't actually know that. I did not know that there was a, like, homegoing as a, kind of cultural thing that just exists. I thought of it as, like, oh, going home.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of where I was looking, and I'm, like, in terms of the identity issues that I know were kind of, like, created by exactly the stuff that this book follows through many generations. Like, the idea of where home is a very reasonable kind of, like, second guessing that happens with a lot of communities in the United States, and especially the Black and African American community.
Liz, you're super blurry on my end. Anybody else's?
Yeah, she's
okay.
Kind of out of focus. You're out of focus, girl.
I didn't even know there was a focus option.
There may not be.
Oh,
I don't know. I just was like, okay, am I nuts? Or, like, did I take something and I didn't realize it?
Better, worse, it might just be a shitty webcam.
Same.
It might just be a crappy webcam. All right, don't worry about it.
It was cheap.
I like the way the novel uses a sense of place. That is one thing I really do like, is the sense of movement and place and lack of being able to settle anywhere. Even, like, all over the novel, every single character had a feeling of, I don't belong here, it seemed like. Or this is not where I'm supposed to be, among the two groups of people that were fighting, and then you add the British in, and then all along the way it was sort of like, this is not where I belong. And I really liked that pervasive sort of concept, and that is where I didn't know anything about the term homegoing either, so that's where the term resonated with me, was everybody seemed to be moving somehow, like either uptown or across an ocean. Everybody was moving or wanting to not be where they were.
Yeah.
So I liked that. Or I found it powerful, I should say. It's hard to say I liked that. Like, that's no.
Yeah. It was a smart authorial decision.
Yes.
I had none of that background either that you had, Rosie. So same as Liz and Amelia. I was kind of like, okay, cool. This is good. This makes sense. Is this what you guys expected out of a generational story? Like, it to move so quickly through characters and generations?
I'm used to them being much slower, but honestly, like, the, real focus on, the connections between family members, that reminded me a lot of, I think I remember House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende a little better than I remember 100 Years of Solitude. And especially with the magical realism elements, I was like, yes, this is what this is what I think of when I think generational story. At least, like, following, like, really being stapled to the back of one character's head, and you follow them around. And so that makes sense to me. I think, like, within the genre, you did it.
I'm in the middle of House of the Spirits right now.
I love that book.
It's sleepier, it's slower, and so it has not grabbed me the way this one was able to, because it does move slower.
The first time I read House of the Spirits, I was in high school. It was the first book for English class that I was ever like, oh, hell yeah. And I got through really fast. And then I reread it in Spanish because I'm an asshole like that, and I wanted to show off. But yeah, you're right. It is slower.
It's a much sleepier book, but it does have that same feel, that same sort of something's magical.
That richness of, like, describing your place and all that stuff.
Agreed. Rosie, what did you think?
I actually didn't know it was going to be a generational novel. I actually didn't know anything about it. I reached out to you guys. I know a number of you have book goals for the year. Like I want to read people of color or non-American authors or what have you. And so I reached out to you and said, give me some ideas. And then I Googled it and went, hey, this looks good. So I really didn't know anything about it before I started. And like the rest of you, really the only experience I can think of in terms of generational novels would be Allende or Sun Also Rises, or For Whom the Bell Tolls.
It will probably be from Bell Tolls because I don't remember generations.
It is.
Then again, I didn't really read The Sun Also Rises.
Well, it's I think it's Tennessee Williams is who I'm thinking of. Anyway, so it's the same kind of feel though. It goes from one piece of the family to the other piece of the family, and then they sort of take turns, and you see how they interweave, which I really, really like. But like I said, I'd read any one of these stories individually from start to finish.
Yeah.
And depending on where we are historically, I'd probably cry. And let's be real, I'd cry on every one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This disturbs me deeply, and it makes me wish that I do more than just impotent rage.
Mm-hmm. This question isn't on there, but as I was reading, I was thinking this would be an excellent novel for like a high school junior English class.
It is on there.
I added it while you were
talking.
We can skip to it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so in mine and Nessa, because we took a lot of the same English classes, they had us reading like Marquez and Allende, and I'm like, you could swap one of those out, like. As much as I love Allende, like you might be able to keep the boys' attention a little better with Marquez because I think there's some boobs in there, and have everybody read this. Like I think it would be cool for kids to be able to read more than just The Invisible Man.
Yes, and I hate to say it, I think it's a little more accessible than Allende. Although Allende is beautiful, I think this is a little more accessible.
Objectively, yes, it is.
Yeah. So I was that's as I was reading, I was like, gosh, this would have been perfect to read in high school. I mean, I loved it now too. But.
I could see this book in a lot of courses.
I would love to see it in like high school, like public high school English classes. Yeah. Not even AP. I don't think it's so. I don't think it's really like a challenging, sluggish read. I think that like kids and like you don't have to do it just for AP. You could do it for like the whatever the step below AP is. I don't know, whatever like normal people.
Regular.
Like regular, I don't know. We went to one of those high schools that was like, there's no such thing as like A, B, and C level. It's AP, advanced, and academic. So they all have like vague code.
Let's call it normal high school English class.
English.
For people to read.
Yeah,
I just feel like it's the perfect target audience. Although I think it's good for anybody. It would be like a really good age for that.
I think so too. I agree.
So how well did the magical realism elements fit into the overall story?
Special point, really only ever like magical realism stuff in Ghana, in the Ghana side.
Yes.
And I think that that's important.
I think so too. I honestly didn't think of it as magical realism. I don't know why. I think I was tying a lot of that back into the belief system. For them when they were in Ghana, like non-Christian belief system. So I guess for me, like I didn't overlook it so much as just viewed it as a belief.
I think maybe I can clarify that because that makes sense. Like that's one part of it, but there's also like the idea of she has visions of the fire woman, visions of fire, the idea of like having visions. Is one of the things that I consider to be magical realism, especially when we know just how startlingly accurate they all are.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, in the end, it was. I think I just took it off all on a faith belief system for some reason.
Yeah. I think you get the same thing out of the book, but I just realized why all the magic magic things, are only happening to the Ghanaian branch. They didn't lose their stone.
Ooh. Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. They didn't lose their what?
Stone. The magic rock.
Oh, their stone. Sorry, this iPad cuts out. I only get about 2/3 of what you guys say on any given time.
You missed me, like my rock-related mic drop then. No, I
that's
think
a good
like
point.
so. Yeah, I think that. Also, I think there's the idea of like the and even other groups of people in the United States can talk about. There's like the mythical homeland where like everything was so much more magical and wistful and stuff. And it's especially funny when like it was your great grandparents that came over here because there's no fucking food. But no, if we were all able to go back there, oh, it's a beautiful green and hoity-toity. So yeah, been thinking a lot about identity politics lately, guys.
I can tell.
Didn't make any more road
I do
trips.
think it fit in nicely, though. It didn't, like, I don't know. I'm real weird about magical realism, though. I don't know about you guys. Like, I usually don't like it, but in certain books, I really like it.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, whatevs, like, means it fit in nicely for me.
See, that's the realism part. It's got to feel like it actually belongs there. So, like, Clara's psychic in House of the Spirits. Like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, this is just a thing that's happening.
That it just is part of the world.
Yeah, it just is. It's just happening.
There's nobody reacts to it uncomfortably. You know, I mean, apart from the bad things that happen, nobody's like, oh, this isn't right. They're just like, yeah, all right, whatever.
On the flip side of that, a lot of like I've read a few Japanese horror novels and I watched like Japanese horror, and the flip side of that is, how did you ever discover this? I am psychic. Oh, okay. Like everything else, including like the fact that there's a monster, is being handled very realistically. And then, like, and it's inevitably a woman. I am psychic. Oh, okay, she's got no. That's how we know it's right. Like, so yeah, it can be shoehorned in as like a little like way to hand wave your way through a plot point that you didn't think out all the way. But I think it was integrated seamlessly in this one.
What do you think of the examples of faith, belief, curses, and evil in the book? This is such a hard one because there's so many examples.
Yeah.
I feel like. I don't know whose sub-question this is.
It was mine.
Okay.
Specifically what I think of course, because my favorite character was Crazy Lady, I think. And what I think of is when she's talking to Marjorie, or was it Marjorie? No, I think it was her son she was talking to about, we're just evil. Like, our line is evil. And I know this now, and I understand this now because the fire woman told me. Like, the reason that all these bad things have happened to us is because we were born from evil. And I was just wondering what you guys thought of that as a concept, like.
She was strangely okay with it. She's like,
I know, she was kind of like, yep, now I get it. Like, she didn't have this feeling that she should cleanse it or anything.
I just don't know how they, I mean, I guess they were born of evil because of the, like, so, oh God, I'm going to mess this up. One of them was born and then given to the lady that, like, Baba.
Yeah.
And then the other one went into the slave trade.
The other one was put
sold.
in slavery.
Sold in slavery, yeah.
So it's Iphia's
family
who worked with the traders that were evil, right?
Yeah.
But before Essie was sold, her family also took slaves. Yeah. And that's why the little doves curse. So slavery is the root of all the cursed fortunes that happened.
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that the curse, or is the curse the way in which they were brought into the world?
That too was slavery, because remember the mom, the fire woman, I guess, Mami, had been the house girl of Ephia's dad. So the children themselves were born of slavery, and the fact that she separated the two in order to move on and then eventually participate in the slavery system herself. I think you're right. You're right. That single event was
the birth of the evil, whatever.
Yeah, like that's when shit started.
Yeah,
doing its down spiral.
I hate that that's what it is, like, for the family, I guess, in a way, because I don't like thinking that people are just purely evil because of that. Like, I believe it's a choice, but in the world it makes sense.
Mm. Well, then there's also some people who went on to seemingly be okay for a good chunk of their lives. Like, Yao was very happy. It seemed like H had figured things out along the way.
Once he got out of indentured servitude, yeah.
Once he became a union guy. I mean, it was the black lung, but hey, what you gonna do?
Well, just that.
Yeah, just a little black lung. I think until everything went to shit, Joe was doing just fine. He was a happy guy in Baltimore, and then the fucking fugitive slave act.
Yeah.
Fucking white people. And,
yeah, but the things that go to shit in their life, like, I guess the blame would, I don't know. It's just interesting how that all plays out.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense when she's saying, like, our family's evil, and maybe it's like, yeah, we don't know. She is probably talking about, like, just the splitting of two sisters, the splitting of the family in the first place.
Man, from that perspective, though, like, basically any family would be evil.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question, you guys. Who among you knows religion well, knows the Bible well?
Not me.
Where's Ness when we need her?
I know.
Because I keep thinking the fire as their order reminds me of the burning bush with Moses. As was that the start of the 40-year wandering lost, or what?
Yeah, I actually do know that story pretty well.
Oh, that's Old Testament, yeah.
Yeah, it's Old Testament, so I'm pretty good at that.
Okay, go.
This one in particular. So what happened was, if you go back to the very beginning, Moses was raised by the Egyptian Pharaoh at the time in his household. But then at some point,
White Castle.
Right. And at some point he realizes he's not Egyptian, he's an Israelite. Well, I guess they wouldn't be Israelites yet because they hadn't gotten there, but he's a Jew. So he leaves and goes to live with the other Jewish people out in the desert. And that's when the burning bush, God appears to him through a never consumed burning bush and says, you need to go and free your people. So then that's when Moses goes back and goes, hey, what up, adopted dad? You need to let my people go. And the adopted dad's like, no, I'm not gonna. So I could definitely see where the non-consuming fire would be analogous.
There's some parallel there to the fire.
And there's, I mean, it's that is the Bible, or at least the Old Testament's big story of slavery and freedom from slavery is the Exodus.
But Effia doesn't do that.
No, she does not.
Yes, she does.
She does not.
There is a lot going on here. High school English teachers, come on.
Right? No, there's a lot going on, and it just sort of brushes the top of so many things.
Yeah.
You know, you could take any one of these and dive much further into it.
You could do 2 whole-page worksheets.
Oh, yeah.
You
could do essays. Yeah, this could be a quarter worth of material, easy.
Yeah. But it's high school English, so they're probably going to do it in like 3 weeks, and the kids are just going to have to like bullshit their way through a couple chapters and do enough to answer some questions, and then they go take the standardized test.
That sounds about right.
Kids these days. Yeah. Well, no, because that's actually one of the things.
Just being an entire course in graduate school.
Honestly, you can do a lot with what's here. There's my floss getting all tied up. Shit. Sorry. Anyhow. But yeah, that's actually kind of like one of the things, because I wrote the whole like all caps thing about like, oh, they should go in a school thing. I kind of don't want to ruin it for kids though, for younger people. And there's no way to ruin someone's enjoyment of literature faster than most high school English courses.
True.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the right teacher, it's fine though. Like I enjoyed the Scarlet Letter because I had a good teacher. You know,
I loved Hamlet. Yeah, same reason. I had a good teacher.
Yeah, I liked Hamlet too. We had kids in our class that did voices for every character, so that was fun.
Cool.
And we had a dude who was Ophelia, so that was amusing.
Nice.
As always. Do you guys want to talk more about the title, or do you think we covered it enough?
Excuse me.
I think we got it. We got a pretty diverse opinionage. No, cut it out.
How do you feel, Rosie, about the title?
Yeah, you were the only one who came to it with anything kind of like more knowledge than we had of the home.
I think we've talked about the title.
All right. What symbolism do you see in scars, if any?
Oh boy, can I go?
Yeah, go.
Okay. All right. So somewhere near the beginning, one of the Asante women won't shake hands with, I think it's the Fonte kid who's got the American name, is the one who's half white.
James.
Okay. So the woman won't shake hands with the slaver.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Oh, yeah.
he talks about how the Asante and the Fonte both have culpability in the slave trade, and how can she, like, does she not want to shake her own hand? And then I was thinking about the fire and the fact that slavery is a scar on the face of America, and this generations later, we've got the deeply scarred man because his mother is the crazy woman, and she's not actually crazy. She's mentally ill, but she has scars on her hand, and her granddaughter says, Marjorie says, it's hard to see where the scars stop and the wrinkles start, because all of that scarring and all of that sadness and all of that history has just become enmeshed, and it's impossible to untake one piece from another.
And don't forget Ness's story, where she was super scarred, and what was her husband's name?
He was super big cone dude.
Sam.
Sam.
They named him Sam, and
also tons of scars and that whole thing.
Oh crap! Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
It's almost like the concept of the scar becomes more integrated as you go. Like at the beginning, the scar identifies if you're Asante or Fonte.
Yeah, so you don't get captured.
Right. And then Ness's scars prevent
yeah.
her from having a sort of, quote, easier, stupid, but, sort of being more in the house, less outside, and so, oh, you're not beautiful enough, you have to stay outside because you have all these scars.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go, they get sort of more and more incorporated into, up to when the man's face gets scarred, and then he's using it as a teaching tool, which was just such a delightful scene.
Yeah.
By the way, like, history nerd. That was
I liked his little Love Actually plot.
Yeah, it was so cute.
Falling in love with the housekeeper.
Yes. It's like they became less, they became more a part of the person as it went on or something.
I think they became more of a visual reminder to their like struggles to an extent, and then they kind of like called back in ways to the previous people whose scars we talked about, who they talked about in the book, and then like moving forward, it kind of just became they got better. I don't want to say better. I don't think that's the right word, but the lack of scars. Do you know what I mean? Like as you moved forward for the final generation.
But still there and still talked about. And some of the scars are more now metaphorical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely more metaphorical.
For the last generation that's more current.
And less like visually like having scars.
Yeah.
Which was interesting to see that transition. I hadn't thought about it that much actually until you wrote this question, and I was like, wait a minute.
There was another piece unrelated to scars, but I just thought of it, where one of the dads says to the son that black people don't like water or something like that. And when he was talking about why he was afraid of the ocean, it reminded me of a thing that I heard when I was a kid, and it really stuck with me because I was a kid in the 70s, and the race movements had all they were fresh, right? And I remember hearing that black kids didn't like to swim because they weren't allowed in the white pools and they didn't learn how. And so what you had was generations of people growing up not knowing how to swim, even though historically, ancestrally, they were from the coast. They were from next to the ocean.
I remember one of the, I think it was a gold medalist in the Beijing Olympics from the American team, actually was like, yeah, and I'm going to use what I can to start up a program to teach kids from the cities, young black kids, how to swim, because drowning is a disproportionate cause of death among young black children. Like just out of nowhere, there's like this spike in like who drowns, and yeah, that's exactly
Crazy.
what probably.
Awful.
Mm.
Did you consider your own family history while reading this or after you finished reading it?
I didn't, but I did afterwards. And then I thought, is it wrong that I didn't, or is it okay that I let this not be my story? I mean, how fine a line is it between owning somebody else's story and putting yourself in it to make it accessible, or versus just not thinking of where your family sits in this history?
I mean, I don't think either way is right or wrong in a way.
After the fact, to realize that all of my family in the United States came over very recently. Did I lose you guys?
No, you're still
No, yeah. I mean, I would say if there's any family, I don't know very much of my family history. Some of it's just lost. Some of it I'm just not connected to my family well enough to know. But I do know that I'm white in America, so it's likely I come from slave owners at some point in my family's past. I know my dad's side didn't come over till, I want to say, they might have come over during World War II because they're the Jewish side of the family. And I know I lost family members in the Holocaust. Most of us did. But the other side I don't know as much about, and I don't know and I don't even know anything about either side. But I think it's safe to assume that I'm white in America. My family's been in America a while, so it's safe to say that I probably come from people who were slave owners or interacted with slave owners.
I know sort of a bizarre amount about my family because they all just kept meticulous records. I know that my mom's family has been here the longest. I know that they came from England in, I think it was like 1870. It was the back half of the 1800s, so like nearest makes no difference, but they were always in New Jersey. So in as much as that makes a difference, and it really doesn't, because they were like kind of assholes in another way. Like the guy owned a railroad. My great-great-grandpa looked like a cross between Woodrow Wilson and a Monopoly guy. But on my dad's side, that's the Irish side, they know exactly where everybody came from. And also weirdly on my pop-pop side, with one missing link that we actually managed to fill in, thanks to findagrave.com. This is actually a fun one. So my pop-pop, his dad died when my pop was about like 9 months old. And then his mother very quickly remarried to a new guy who was like, but I don't want that other guy's son around. So he got dropped off with his grandfather, and it was just a whole shit show. But Arthur Morgan was missing for almost 100 years, and eventually I found his grave. He died in the coal mines. So that's another part of H's story that I was like, yep, that shit's dangerous. Mm-hmm. But his family is able to, they couldn't find Arthur's grave for who knows how long, but he sure as shit knew that, like, oh, on this side, here, there's the little forest village, like, they came from Wales, and then they moved to this side of the Forest of Dean. Like, so I've got so many people who can say, like, where home was, and some of them are kind of dicks about being like, yeah, we could go back, especially the Irish members of my family, Jesus Christ. Like, you guys would all die. You guys would all die in Ireland. You would have no idea what to do with the weather. Like, you're from Brooklyn. Just deal with it. And, like, you'd never be able to figure out the euro. But yeah, so, and I realized, like, as much as I give shit to my family about just, like, how much we know, because it's borderline silly, like, that is an absolute privilege that I'm able to say, like, here's where my roots go. Here's, like, I can probably, Like, if I could contact, like, one or two more great aunts and uncles, which I know they're alive, it's just they live on Long Island, that may as well be fucking Timbuktu. I could probably find the villages that we all came out of. I know that one of the first waves of the Howards came through Cove in Ireland, and I was actually able to go to Cove. This is a luxury that most people... I got this while I was, like, kind of talking... it was the Nazis took a DNA test and found out that they're not pure and Aryan after all. Oopsie. And I was like, yeah, I would need to take one of these tests because I know exactly. And it's like, oh shit, man, I can't imagine. Like, it's such a different world, and these are people who, like, on the one side, like in the Ghanaian side, there were people who knew, like, exactly, like, they knew their old village, they knew this, so like the line ending in Marjorie, like, knew exactly where they were from. They knew exactly this, exactly that, up to and including having visions of the past. And then Marcus's side, no, was it Marcus?
Yeah.
Marcus's side, they were just like, yeah, we're black in America, so there's a whole bunch of big fucking gaps here, and we make it work.
Yeah. We don't even have our family name. We don't have anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they call to that when they talk about being Freeman. Was it Joe? Yeah, it was Joe. I was like, is that Joe? I don't want to mess up the names. So I kind of briefly during was like, this would be interesting, like, if someone was able to put this together about their family, like, in a way. And then I would, like, I've got like a couple two aunts who are, like, obsessed with genealogy, ancestry stuff. So I get, like, tidbits, but they mostly lived in Illinois. I know that one, like, we actually have, my aunt found something with paperwork about somebody having, I think it was, like, one slave. Like,
if you've been here long enough, it's almost a guarantee.
Which, I mean, it's not shocking, like, in any, but I mean, they're in Illinois, so I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. But it was, like, before the Civil War, and then that was it. Like, they weren't, rich plantation family or anything like that. Like, it was
my family was so poor.
Like, they were, so, but I was just like, oh, that's weird, and I mean, you just assume it to an extent, right? Because you're white and,
Yeah.
But I don't have, like, I don't have what you have, Liz, at all. Like, I know the McCulleys come over from Ireland. I know the Tolls are United Kingdom. Supposedly we have some Swede in us, but it turns out it's maybe like 1%. But just one family member was convinced there was more than that, and then it turned out that wasn't true. I know the last name Head is in our family tree, and they did name their kids Big.
Well, that's important.
Family of comedians, or they better be.
And we have family, like, from the Carolinas, like North Carolina as well. But that's, like, I don't know how far removed, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so weird.
No, and I get it, and I get that that's, like, I get that I'm on the weird side, because, like, we also have, like, the family legends, like the legend of Kate Ronayne, and so how she tried really hard to...
It is a huge privilege. It's a huge privilege.
It is.
But as you get older, because actually one of the things that I really appreciated about the book is that it told the good and the bad. Everybody had their good and their bad. Like Fiafi, he was a good dude. He was very kind to the son of James's father, and also the son of James. He was like the second time we it's Afia, the guy I'm talking about, but he was also involved in the slave trade, and like unabashedly so. And meanwhile, like, I say shit like, yeah, Dad, on the other hand, you do know that, like, we're absolutely related to terrorists. Well, that's different. It was different. He went to the IRA. The IRA was not that fucking long ago.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know that about my Irish family. No clue.
I mean, we hit every single North American, Irish American stereotype. The cop, the priest, the fireman, the drunk cop, the drunk priest, the drunk fireman. And one of the priests used to go back and forth between the jails up in, like, Belfast and stuff, and the U.S. And there is no question, and having been to his wake, I still remember he was absolutely running guns. He was absolutely making things worse up there. But no, he's still just, like good old Father Tom, Oh, did I tell you about the time he shot a jaguar while he was a missionary in Brazil? I'm not fucking kidding.
Well, and I think the important thing to note here is that all of us as Caucasians can at least have a reasonable suspicion of where we come from. Like, Liz, you have a special version.
Yeah,
all of us could get on Ancestry.com and, like, maybe trace back, some. But it seems like people who came from Africa do not get that benefit. Like, there's not that kind of record to even trace.
I would like them to also have the ability to look back and be like to be able to kind of slag on their family a little bit, to have that much of a knowledge is better than to know nothing.
Right, and that's just not available for people who are stolen.
Well, and I just think of, we know nothing about Dave's family really because he doesn't talk to them. And I just think about how many people, I met people who, similar situation of like, they just don't know because they were adopted or anything. And obviously it's not as awful as not being able to go far enough back because of slavery, but it's just, it's such a weird thing that people think is so intrinsic to who you are, to know where your family comes from. And people, ask you like where your family, like it's the thing people still ask.
In the United States, yes. It's a weird thing everywhere else.
No, I know, but here it is, like this thing, like I get asked it all the time because my name. People like think I'm Spanish and I'm not. And it's, and then my maiden last name is a whole nother ballpark of getting asked that question because they would think my family is like immigrated recently because we have such a super German last name.
Well, see, in my real life last name is definitely not what my family's last name was coming over. It definitely got changed,
I have a few friends whose Polish last names lost a few D's and J's along the way.
Yeah, we lost like an M, I think.
And now we're talking about people from Africa who lost everything.
Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. I guess it's the best way to put it.
It's
one of those to recognize that privilege, I think, that Americans have.
I had a girlfriend in college whose last name was Mizell, and her family was from Louisiana. They were from France and then from Louisiana. And we met another girl in college whose last name was Mizell. And my girlfriend got really excited. Oh my God, I've never met another Mizell. Do you think we're related? And this gal looked at her and she said, no, I think your family used to own mine.
Oh, no.
And that was like a, whoa, that was a huge, and of course, if we thought for 30 seconds, we realized that our blonde Mizell and our brown-skinned Mizell were probably not related. Although,
or perhaps were non-consensually related at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a huge sort of shocking moment for both of us. In terms of white privilege, we were in our 20s, and it was the late 80s, and
I went to high school with a girl who had the same last name as me. I probably way the fuck out. Like, my last name is basically the Smith of Ireland. But you know what? We were just like, haha, that's funny. Completely different context. It's like, what is a haha, that's really funny, let's wait for the guidance counselor to screw up and forget we're not sisters, is like a very much like grab the wound and rip it down kind of thing. Just completely innocently.
It is our privilege to not have had to even think of it until it's suggested or in our face somehow. We're non-privileged in this way. People have to think about this every day.
So, one last question we've got on the thing. So the book, we do have some biracial children come out of the relationships in the book. Do you feel the book talked about it a lot? Do you feel it was brought up? Or was it more just they were a little lighter and that was it for that discussion?
I don't think it was talked about enough.
I think it was trying to do one thing at a time, and I think that it did come up in terms of Willie's husband, Robert.
That was the big piece.
So if it was dealing with if it was dealing with being biracial, it was in like a very specific context of passing. Also, they used like Pratt City, where like everything was, everybody lived with everybody, and so until they didn't, and being biracial would not have been weird in that context, and then they made it weird again, and then passing, and oh god, that was a really rough chapter.
That was a rough chapter.
Yeah, but the only time it was ever mentioned was with the guy who could pass. Because there are lots and lots of well, not the only time, I guess earlier mixed biracial kids, but and that's still a thing that isn't talked about. My younger brother is biracial. And he in mid-40s, he's a high school biology teacher. He'll go to conferences with other high school teachers, adults, who will ask him, "What are you?" Literally, the words, "What are you?" Right? And so this is, 2017, and we're going,
what the Christ?
I'm a biology teacher, I'm a husband, I'm a brother. What the fuck are you asking me?
Yeah.
And so he can count his history
middle.
way back on his mom's side because she's white. But on his dad, as far back as the slave owners. And it's very important because it's very important to my little brother, and I was sort of, the one thing that I'll say about the book that kind of bummed me out is the only time they talked about biracial issues is with the guy who could pass and left his wife. And that just, some people, and I'm in 7th grade and saying, I'm going to be black now. I'm tired of trying to be white. They don't accept me. I'm not white. And his mother, married to my father, both redheads with blue eyes, said to him, you can try, but you're not being raised by a black family. I don't know that you can do that. And when he went to college, it was made very clear to him that he's not black either.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2017, he has no homegoing. He's got family who loves him very much, but he doesn't have a community that he hasn't created himself. And that's right now. And I talked about this actually when the Black Lives Matter movement first started. I have a cousin here in Arizona who's a cop, and he's as white as you can possibly be. And he goes out to work every day and he puts himself in danger, but he does that because he chooses to, because he chose his job as a cop. And I've got a little brother who works every day, and he walks out the door and he doesn't change the color of his skin. Job. And change, and make it safe because his life is not his job. This is what made me cry through the book. From beginning to end is the fact that there's never been a sense things matter.
Yeah, and I think as 4 white ladies, we can talk about that to a degree, but we can't speak to it with the power that people who actually experience this can.
No.
I think it's important for us to know.
I can only talk from it from the
from your
own sister,
important.
It's also closer than
that's really important.
It's still not mine, though.
But
yeah, and it's just one of those things that we don't own this issue. We can just pass it on and say, look, everybody, you guys read this book and get to know.
We can elevate.
Yeah.
It's the best thing we can do.
Yeah.
Because
I really would like to see some high school kids reading this book.
Oh my God, me too. I really think it would be good, and it grabs you in a way that it just does not.
I want it to be taught by a high school teacher who is willing to shut down the kid who's like, well, my family didn't. Shut up. It's not about you, Timmy.
Right. Teach the privilege. Teach it.
Yeah. This is someone's story. This is what other people's stories look like, and you're going to meet them. You're not even going to know that you've met them.
When she addresses it, when she talks about Marcus and how he can't do his research because it keeps pissing him off.
Yeah, I was like,
oh God. I was like, yeah, dude.
Vortex. I was like, oh man, I get that.
He's like, I can't. Every time I open this book, I get pissed off, so I have to close the book.
I think every time I open this book, I think of 18 more things that will piss me off and that I want to read and yell about. But there's only so much paper in the universe.
Yeah, and it would be, I don't know. In my opinion, it would be good if we all got that angry and that upset about it instead of defending it and Oh, let's not forget our history. Well, no, I don't think we should forget our history, but I don't think we should be lauding it either.
Nobody's forgetting.
That's my personal opinion.
Nobody's forgetting that part.
I do think reading this book with the current events in our world was just like
yeah, it's definitely
kind of like being pummeled.
Yeah,
a little bit emotional, cutting through reading.
Yeah, the timing was
important.
It was.
Yeah,
It was. It wasn't in a bad way. I was like, oh boy.
It's a lot, but that's what it says. That's how you know we're white ladies reading this book, is we pick up the book and whoa, I have emotions. People live with these emotions every day.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You know, like, oh, I only access those emotions through the point of view of someone else. That's privilege.
Oh yeah,
that is privilege.
And this book really can highlight your privilege in that way, I think, as you read it.
And I think that's important, and that's why I think it should be taught in high school.
Definitely,
it's also a very good book. it's also very well written
and interesting, and I think it's beautiful for that. Beautiful.
So let's give nugs.
Yes.
Amelia, go first.
5 nugs, but oh my god, seriously, it's sad. So be prepared. Be prepared for sad.
Liz, your turn.
I gave it 4 because I think that because I really liked it, but I was still wanting more. I loved the end. I think the last 4 chapters were fantastic, and it all really came together. I think that if a little more time had been given to some of the even earlier things, it could have been even better, but it's still really good. Really go read it.
Yeah.
And so 4, I don't do halves, but 4 extra crispy, just delightful nugs.
I'd say 5 nugs. This is one of my new go-to recommendations. And Rosie, since it was your book, I want you to close it out with your rating.
I'm going to give it 5, but they're soggy with tears. And it would have only been 4 if they had found the other black and gold stone when they went to Africa, and I was really, really glad that they didn't.
They didn't.
Because
as
soon as we walked into the slave, I was like, "Oh fuck! Please don't do this."
Yeah, I thought they were going to do that too, and I was like,
I was too.
There's a version of that book that is out there, and she's like, no. This is what rewrites her for.
I mean, or it would have been interesting if it was a glimpse of it, but they didn't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally thought they were going to go there too, because they went to the place and everything. I was like, uh-oh.
I know, that just would have been...
300 years later.
A little too shiny. That would have been a little too shiny ending-wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did not go there. I was very, very, very moved by this, and I'll definitely make it a go-to recommendation as well.
Yeah. This is a very good book.
So next month, and a complete shift.
As
always. Because that is what we do here. What's your pick?
Shit's gonna get silly. Except I'm told that this is actually a more mature book than it sounds like. I have picked Meddling Kids by Oscar Contero. If I could reach it, I would bring over my hardcover copy because it's got a very
super pretty,
groovy Technicolor front.
Here, wait, let's see if I can show it to you.
It's supposed to be, that's it. It's like the Scooby Gang all grown up, except cosmic horror too. Shit really went down. There are dogs, so. Yeah, so tonal whiplash, but yeah, fingers crossed.
Maybe not though, because I have heard it is
it's more serious than you think.
Yeah.
But still, I'm looking forward to some hijinks. There's got to be at least 1 or 2 hijinks in this one.
I sincerely hope so.
My mom's reading it.
I demand a mask removal.
Oh yeah, no, I'm 90% certain there's a mask removal.
I can't imagine it without.
No, there has to be. Even if it's just in one of the flashback chapters, there's got to be a mask removal. Or Scooby homage without masks.
Right.
So yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, we'll be back sometime in September. I don't know when yet.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta get through the Stone Sky before I even touch.
Oh, right.
All right, stop it.